Hi there, it's Tracy and Joah here back again to do another video for you about some financial matters that we think you should learn about a little bit. Today we are going to talk about debt and how to manage your debt and how to get yourself out of debt maybe a little bit. First of all, we want to talk a little bit about what debt actually is, and really it's just defined as any amount of money that you owe someone or that you're due to pay. A couple facts to get you on the right mindset here are that the average American has a credit card debt of $6,000. And the average American student that graduated from college in 2019 had over $30,000 in student loans. So for those of you who are graduating soon and have student loans, you are about to have a lot of debt that you are going to need to know how to deal with. Okay, so there are lots of kinds of debt out there. Whether you plan on buying a car or someday getting a house, you're going to have to know how to deal with that debt and at some point how to pay it off. So Joah is here with me again, and he is going to talk first of all about, are there better kinds of debt compared to other kinds of debt? So Joah, why don't you take it away for us?
Yep. So I like to categorize debt into better debt and bad debt. So I don't really call the better debt good debt because it's generally just best to pay for things up front if you can. So that's just like the idea behind the terminology there. So better debt, the idea is that you're taking a loan out for something that is going to eventually pay for itself back. So examples of this would be student loans, getting an education is an investment into yourself. You can get like tangible financial benefits from that. Another example would be a home mortgage. Your home value will generally increase over time, so that's the justification there. And later in life, you might want to start a business, and a business startup loan is also a good example for better debt. And sadly, there's a lot more examples of bad debt than there are of better debt. And to just name a few, we got credit card debt and car loans. Those are probably the biggest kinds of debt that you're going to face in your life.
So bad debt is basically anything where you're not really gaining value to it in the long run.
Yep. Especially with cars, like once you take a car out of the shop or like the where they sell them,
Off the car
then
lot.
it's just going to immediately lose like a lot of its value. And the
Right.
more you drive it, it's going to keep losing its value. And you're still going to owe that money for what it was initially worth, even though it's probably not worth that amount. So it's going to depreciate in value rather than appreciate in value over time. So yeah, just like anything other than home mortgages or student loans or startup loans for businesses are essentially bad debt.
So once you know what you have for bad debt versus better debt, how do you really decide what you want to do about it? How do you decide what you want to pay off? How do you decide how you're going to pay off these debts? Where do you go from there?
So you want to look at all your debt as a whole. So obviously make all your minimum payments for everything. But if you have some extra money to put towards your debt, you want to target your debt that has the highest interest rates, which I am going to touch on next. So when you sign up for a loan, there's going to be a term next to it called APR. That stands for annual percentage rate. And that's just a fancy way of saying like, how much interest are they going to charge you like over like a certain period of time? And then that's just going to be a recurring payment that you have to do. And then another thing you got to keep in mind is, I already touched on it a little bit, is you got to make your minimum payments and you got to make them on time. Otherwise, you're going to get a late fee. And then that's just like extra money you're going to have to pay just for like not paying it on time.
So, oh, I'm sorry. I was just wanted to interrupt there. So you keep talking about making your minimum payments. So if you have some sort of loan, a student loan, do you have to make your minimum payments, or is it possible to actually pay more?
You can usually pay more on your loans, and that will ultimately decrease the amount of interest you're charged. So if you have the extra income to put towards it, that's a really good idea to pay those down as much as possible.
Okay, so in addition to decreasing the amount of interest you paid, I believe that cuts the shorter the time of your loan too. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
So you're going to be paying that loan for a shorter period of time as well.
Okay. Is there any downfall to paying more on your loans, do you think?
Paying it down on your loans kind of like gets that money out of your account, so it can't go towards other things that it might be more usefully served. Like if you don't have an emergency fund,
Mhm.
you might be better served to hold off on putting that money towards a loan and build up your emergency fund first. So you really got to look at your financial situation as like a whole to determine what's best for you.
Right. I like how you keep going back to that. Look at all of your debt as one
Mm-hmm.
big pot, not just focus on, I have student loans, I want to get rid of my student loans. There's, you have other
Yeah, yeah,
debts that you
yeah.
need to look at. And that kind of leads to something I wanted to talk about a little bit. There is a thing called consolidation of debts. And for some people, this works out really nice because if you have several different things you're trying to pay off, say you have a credit card debt and you have student loan debt and you have a car loan, you might have 3 or 4 big loans that you're trying to pay off. Sometimes you can consolidate them. And what that means is you turn it into one pot of money instead, one big loan, and then you just have to make one payment. And there are a couple different ways you can do this. There are specific loans you can take out from banks to do that. Sometimes you can get some of your loans forgiven, meaning like I know that in education, if you teach maybe in an inner city school for a certain number of years, you can get part of your student loans forgiven. You might be in a specific type of government job where if you work there for a certain number of years, you can get your loans forgiven. So there are ways to get some of that loan either taken away or to put them together so that you're making less payments, but trying to still pay down that loan. Speaking of loans, Joah, what can you tell us about the process to actually get a loan or important things to keep in mind if you're going to get a loan?
Yeah, so when you get a loan, you obviously have to apply for it in some way, shape, or form. And that's going to depend largely on the type of loan you're getting. So we're going to do a separate video more along the lines of getting a loan. But some things to keep in mind are that you have to save up for a down payment if you're going to be getting a house. And you got to make sure you have enough money for the monthly payments after you get your loan as well. So you have to have that extra income for it to, you have to plan ahead for like that expense as well. And you got to look at like how much you took out and how much you're going to put towards it every month. So you got to look at the total sum or the principal, which is the whole, and how much you're paying it down every month and how that's affecting your budget for the month.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that if you say borrow $10,000 to buy a car, how much interest are you going to pay on that $10,000? And so how much are you going to actually spend on that car that you thought you were paying
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 for?
Yeah, especially for those long-term loans, you can easily repay for like the same object like multiple times just
Right.
through the interest.
Right. Well, thank you very much. That's a lot of good information there. And again, as we always say, check out It Makes Sense. There's a lot more information there on their website, or you can set up an appointment with Joah or another one of the mentors there, and they can fill you in on anything else that you want to know about how to deal with your debt or any of the other topics that we've talked about. In addition to a video about loans, we're going to also be making a separate video about credit cards. So watch for that one too. Thanks a lot. And thank you, Joe. I really appreciate your help.
Anytime.